Welcome back. So today we're going to dive into something really profound. It's a 14th century guide to a kind of love that's pure, perfect, and honestly transformative. It's called The Dialogue of Divine Providence. Now, this is way more than just some old, dusty book. Think of it as a mystical map for the soul's journey. Let's get right into it.
At the very heart of so much philosophy and religion, there's this one seemingly impossible question. How can our little, finite minds ever truly wrap our heads around the infinite? Well, this text, it doesn't shy away from that question. In fact, it tackles it head on.
The answer the text gives is surprisingly direct. It's not about some abstract, complex thought experiment. It's about revelation. The idea is that the infinite reveals itself in a way we can actually understand. And this one idea, it's the key that unlocks the entire journey we're about to explore.
Okay, so if revelation is the answer, how exactly does that work? Well, the text gives us this incredibly powerful metaphor to guide us, a way to build a path from what we know to what seems unknowable. Let's take a look.
The image we're given is a bridge. Picture this. On one side, you've got humanity. On the other, the divine. And between them, a massive chasm. This bridge is the only way to get across. It's not just an idea either. It's meant to be a living, real pathway that makes a seemingly impossible journey totally possible.
And here, you can actually see the original 14th century text laying this all out. How incredible is it to see it in its original form? The logic here is absolutely crucial. The bridge works because the builder and the destination are made of the exact same stuff. They're one and the same. So seeing one is, well, in essence, seeing the other.
So we have our destination, and we have our path to get there. But where does this whole journey even begin? The text is pretty clear that every single soul starts in the exact same place, trapped on the wrong side of that chasm in a state of imperfection.
The text calls this starting point Eigenliebe, which basically means self-love. But wait, it's not what you might think. It's way more subtle than just simple selfishness. It's more of a transactional love, a love that's always, deep down, based on what we get in return, from our friends, from our family, even from God. And that, according to the text, is the main thing holding the soul back.
This really captures the soul's dilemma, doesn't it? On the one hand, you have this deep, deep yearning for something more, what the author so poetically calls a foot of longing that's always pushing us forward. But on the other hand, we're stuck, mired in this self-love that just clouds our vision and keeps us from moving.
So how do we solve this? How do we actually start walking across that bridge? Thankfully, the text gives us a really clear 3-step process for the journey. Let's break it down.
And here it is, right from the source material. This isn't some modern spin on it. The author literally describes the bridge as having 3 distinct steps that the soul has to climb. It's this structured, deliberate ascent. It's pretty amazing to see the blueprint laid out so clearly.
All right, let's walk through these. Step 1 is all about detachment, basically letting go of our super tight grip on worldly things. Step 2 is about education, learning what real, selfless love actually looks like by studying its perfect example. And finally, step 3 is arrival, finding that deep, profound peace and rest in a divine union. But, knowing the steps and actually walking them are 2 very different things. The text makes it crystal clear this journey is a struggle. There's a battle to be fought, and the biggest enemy is the one we've been talking about this whole time, our own self-love.
This slide really lays out the 2 forces at war inside the soul. On one side, you've got that fickle, conditional love that's always asking, so what's in it for me? And on the other, you have the constant, unconditional love that is the goal. The entire struggle is about getting from the left column over to the right.
And here's the kicker. Even as the soul is climbing those steps on the bridge, this self-love is still there. It remains the final and most difficult obstacle. It's the last thing that has to go, kind of like the final boss of this internal journey. And listen to this. The text uses this incredibly visceral, almost shocking language to describe what has to be done. This isn't about just, pruning the leaves of a few bad habits. No, it's about taking a knife and digging out the very root of that self-love. It's describing a radical internal surgery.
And here's the source for that really intense metaphor. Just look at that phrasing. It really hammers home the idea that this isn't some halfway measure. For the soul to be truly free, the deepest root of its imperfection, this tendency to always put itself first, it has to be completely and utterly removed.
So, after that final, intense battle, what happens? What does it actually look like when the soul has finally crossed the bridge and conquered its biggest obstacle? Let's take a look at the final stage of the journey.
Well, the destination is a state of perfect union. Freed from that constant, exhausting need to serve itself, the soul finally gets to experience what the text calls uncreated perfect love. It's a state of deep peace, the end of all that striving and longing that we started out with.
And here's the really profound insight from the text. This final state, it isn't just some internal, private experience. The journey actually culminates in the ability to love other people, your neighbors, with the same pure, unconditional love that the soul now experiences from the divine. The journey inward ultimately leads outward. It's beautiful.
And so, this 600-year-old text leaves us with a question that feels just as relevant today as it was back then. If our own self-interest is the greatest barrier to connection, with others, with the world, with something bigger than ourselves, then what does it truly mean to love? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me.